What's up, amigos? Today we're doing Maelstrom. I actually did a profile last year with Glory Ripple. And so basically the deck utilizes Glory Maelstrom Scroom with the Legion skill. And I'll cover that in basis if you guys haven't seen that deck profile. One thing to mention, a lot of this build actually came from Zaee. Zaee has kept up to date with this deck. And since Team Dragon's Vanity, we had some new cards that we could actually utilize to actually make this deck a little more consistent, a little bit better. And honestly, with his work and even some of the playtesting that I did, I really like it how it came forward. So let's just get right into it. So onto the grade 3s. Before I really touch onto the grade 3s, there are two cards in particular that I actually want to cover first that just makes sense for the entire deck to function. So the first one is actually Elder Moss. Elder Moss is basically when it's placed on Vanguard or Rearguard, you can reveal one Maelstrom, or if it's in the Vanguard circle, then this unit doesn't actually lose power for the end of the turn. Because if you didn't, it will actually get minus 5k to the turn. So one of the things that is because this came from G era, and back then the 10ks didn't really have skills, especially in a clan like Aquaforce. Now moving forward in the V era, it's an Excel clan, so we still don't have access to 10k grade 2s with skills. So this is from the G era, so those that are wondering about. But really the important skill is the second skill, so it's an axe skill. You can counterblast one, choose one Maelstrom card in the drop zone, and put it into Soul, and that's just the cost. And then the actual skill that's actually gained, it gets attacked from the back row, and it gets plus 4k for the turn. So it's actually really utilized to shove a Maelstrom into the Soul from the drop. And so with Odysseus, he's basically next one, act once per turn. Choose one of your rearguards, shove it into Soul, and search up to one card with Ripple in the name. So you can search up to, so you can choose 0. And then write in a Vanguard, and then pull out a unit from the Soul that is the same grade as your Vanguard, and then that unit gets plus 2k. And so really what it does is, really, again, the cost is to shove another Maelstrom into the Soul. So Elder Moss can put a Maelstrom from the drop into the Soul, and Odysseus from Rearguard to the Soul. So that's really what they're used for. Now, with the interaction just explained, let's just go into the grade 3s. So we're playing 4 Glory Maelstrom, 3 of the V-Era OG Maelstrom, 2 Metiatas, and 1 Genovius. And so with Glory, basically his skill is Counterblast 1. Until the end of the turn, your opponent cannot intercept, and they can only call up to 1 card from his or her hand to Guardian Circle for each battle. And then if you have a card in Maelstrom in the Soul, all of your front row units actually get plus 10k until the end of the turn. And so it's a really powerful skill. And so you want to like maximize with beef up units, so that way you can actually hit thresholds where it's impossible for your opponent to guard. And that way you can actually push damage. And so having that 10k buff just helps a lot. And so cards like Elder Moss and Odysseus makes this card work on your first grade 3 turn with Glory. So you don't have to wait another turn to like rewrite, for example. And really to go along with it is the Maelstrom. Part of the reason why we're running the Viera OG Maelstroms is because there's new support in Team Dragon's Vanity that honestly just synergizes much better with more Maelstroms in your deck. And so really what this guy does is that basically Counterblast 1, all your front row gets plus 3k. So it's a solid plus 3k. You can do a decent formation with that. And then the second skill, which makes it really good as a first Vanguard, is that basically when your Rearguard's attack is the 3rd or 4th battle and it hits, you can actually discard 2 cards and stand this unit. So it's a restanding Vanguard potentially in that turn, which puts that pressure on. And of course, you can play around with, poking their Rearguards for the 1st and 2nd wave, and then really have that 3rd and 4th battle actually hit their Vanguard, which is actually more threatening. So you can really control your opponent's counterblast. You can actually try to get a restand in. So there's a lot of options you can do with them. But ultimately, it's just to increase the number of Maelstroms. So it helps that you can actually have a Maelstrom in the Soul for Glory. Now, with the Ripples, this is really what I would call it, the Ripple engine that is helping the deck as a whole to really maximize on Glory skill. So Metias is the Legion leader, and so he has 2 skills. When he's placed on Vanguard, you can Counterblast 1, check the top 3 cards for Ripple, and add up to 1, and then you mill the rest. So this helps actually just having cards in the drop zone to mill, to perform Legion, right? And also you can potentially do a +1 depending if you find a Ripple in the card. And so it makes that a little nicer. Just be wary of your counterblast though, for real. But the Legion skill is really phenomenal. And so when it attacks, if you have rested units in the front row, if you have at least 3, you can restand one of your rearguards, and then you can countercharge. And then if you have 3 rested in the back row, you'll draw a card. But essentially what it does, it restands a rearguard for you. And with the magic of Odysseus, you basically can have access to Glory and Meltiades all in the same turn. So what I mean by that, so with Odysseus, if you didn't have the grade 3 install, you can shove it to put Glory live. If you have a second copy, or if you already have the grade 3 and you haven't used it, you can do Glory Skill first, so you pay the Counterblast, then get that 10k, the Intercept. All that stuff is placed on the field and onto the player. So when you actually use Odysseus skill to ride Matiatas from the deck into the field as your new Vanguard and Legion, that skill is still in play, which is crazy and phenomenal. And because we have beaters in the grade 2s and some of the great ones that help as boosters too, we could actually hit numbers like in the 27, 28, 33, 32, and even higher. And so it really makes those attacks worth it. And having access to the Legion turn on top of Glory's turn just really helps with that turn. We can restand units like Coral Assault and really just do a final turn, per se. And then, of course, Genovius, he's just the right chain, but he is the Legion mate for the Legion Proc 2, so you got to play at least one. So keep in mind that. So let's go into grade 2s. Onto the grade 2s. So we are playing 10 grade 2s. There is a reason for that. It's actually, we're trying to make a lot of room in the grade 1s because there's a lot of phenomenal grade 1s that just work together with this deck. Let's just cover the bases. So Pavrov, he is basically the Ripple Ride Chain for the grade 2. We are playing 2, so that way we can get a better chance of actually riding him into Vanguard using Odysseus. So that way we get that filter. And also when he's on Vanguard and you have Satorio in the soul, he gets plus 1k. So he becomes a 10k base Vanguard on your opponent's turn and your turn. And if you do have the Satorio again in the soul, then when his attack hits, you could actually stand one of your regards and give it plus 3 to the end of the turn. So you can actually promote 4 attacks that way, or you can just actually give something more power and have a more threatening turn per se, just to hit certain thresholds. So we have both Coral Assault and Eldermoss. Coral Assault, like I said, we need units to really make big numbers, and that's what Coral Assault. So when he attacks, if you have 4 more rested other units, including the Vanguard, it counts the Vanguard, I say, it gets plus 15k. So it becomes a 24k beater. With Glory plus 10, makes it a 34k on his own. And then if you have any boosters, you're passing through thresholds that are phenomenal. So one of the things that are coming into Vanguard are the 30k Sentinel crits. So if you have a Force Vanguard or an Excel Protect, they're basically going to be 42 to 43 that you have to beat. And so cards like, let's say, Baragios has a 13k booster with his 24k attack. That's 37, and then plus 10k from Glory makes it 47. So it actually passes through thresholds, so that way they have to have the PG or they have to G-guard with bigger numbers to really stop that attack. And so Coral is phenomenal. So in the previous deck profile, I only ran like 1 or 2 of them. That was a mistake, and honestly, you want to run 4 of Coral Soul. And plus, he goes into the Soul, which honestly feels the Soul. And it will matter in the point, too, with other cards, too, in the G zone. And so with Eldermoss, like I said, his skill is really phenomenal just to fuel the Maelstroms into the Soul. And so we have the option to Soul Charge basically from the drop or from the rear guard into Soul to make those turns happen. With his number being 10k actually matters. So for example, with him being the 10k boost from Glory, he becomes a 20k. And then if you have a normal 8k booster, that makes 28k. So that's actually a really nice number too, to hit with Force Vanguards as well. And then if you have any of the additional plus 4 and some of the other units, you're starting to push really good numbers. Let's say with Baragios, he'll become 14 with this plus 4 skill. Glory makes it a 24 plus 13k. That makes 37. See? Really good numbers in that per se. And so really these grade 2s are more solid just to like make that Glory turn really impactful, to really make it a final turn as well. And so that's really what the main focus of the grade 2 slots are. So let's get into the grade 1s. Onto the grade 1s. As you can see, we have a lot of grade 1s. And so really, let's just cover the bases with the ripples. Like I said, Odysseus is there for that actual put it into soul. Also performing that Legion turn, really make that phenomenal turn. Satorio is basically the grade 1 ripple chain, so that way you can actually have Pavrov live. He doesn't do anything on his own because we don't play the Alex starter. And he's just another ripple with grade 1 too. Remember, ripples only had 2 sets of support. So yeah. So that covers that basis. So going back into Wheel Assault. So even in my previous deck profile, we were playing Wheel Assault. Wheel Assault is really phenomenal because 2 aspects. So the one that really is key is when he's rolled upon, you can counterblast 1, draw a card, and then call any card from hand into rearguard circle. So when you write to grade 2, you can actually call any Maelstrom. So your grade 3s essentially. And then if you have Odysseus, you can actually shove that grade 3 into soul, write up a Pavrov, and then basically call out the grade 2 that you rode with, which could be an Eldermoss, another Pavrov, or Coral Soap, for example. And you can use it in that grade 2 turn. So it really makes that basically a net 0. Because if you were able to use Odysseus on your grade 3 turn and you needed the Maelstrom into soul, you basically -1 at that point. So that's essential. and you get advantage at that point too. And the other skill is very key. At the end of the battle, it boosts it. You could choose 2 of your rear guards and switch them. And so, if you notice from the grade 2 slots, I'm not playing any restanders. So there's no algos, no title. We're just playing beat sticks and things that actually promote that turn. And so having wheel so to promote more attacks, like if you have more Koro so that you can manipulate, maybe with Aldemas and some of the other cards that you can bring, just even if small pokes can make a difference. And so really having that just to be promoting more attacks helps in that regard too. So with the new stuff, like from Teen Dragon's Vanity, we got Barragios and Analyze Shooters. So this is where it varies from Zae's original build. Zae was playing 3 Pathroth and no Barragios, so basically the grade 1 slots were looking like that. I honestly wanted Barragios, and I didn't like the idea of running 3 Pathroth. 2 was fine just to make that ride consistent enough. So with Barragios, basically what he does, when he's placed onto a rearguard circle, you can check the top 5, add a grade 3, and if you did, discard a card. And so really you can grab any Maelstrom, or you can grab any grade 3 and discard a Maelstrom. So really that's how a Maelstrom can go into the drop so early on without, just calling it and then just calling another unit to like retire it from rearguard circle basically. So you don't -1 at that point, and your deck filtering as well. And then of course he has a skill that's really handy for boosting, and he can even be an attacker bit. Basically, when there's 4 or more rested rearguards, he gets +5. So again, a 30k booster, which makes numbers with Coral Assault, Aldemas, and some of the other units as well, even Vanguard. So that's why I appreciate him. But obviously, I play 3 Analyze Shooter, and the reason because of that is because I wanted to see Analyze Shooter more too. And so what he does is that the attack that he boosted hits a Vanguard, you can actually Soul Blast 1, discard a card from your hand, search your deck up to 2 cards with Maelstrom with different names, and reveal them and add them to your hand and shuffle your deck. And so it really does a lot, right? The Soul Blast 1 is actually not bad because Odysseus literally gives you Soul. And then Eldermoss also gives you Soul. So you can Soul Blast the non-Maelstrom cards, which is not a big deal. The discarding also is nice because, again, you can use cards like Eldermoss to actually get that Maelstrom into the Soul from drop. And then if you're grabbing 2 Maelstroms, which you can copy the OG and the Glory, you just deck then 2 non-triggers out of your deck. Like, that is awesome. So literally, Barragios, Analyze Shooter, and Odysseus are filtering cards for you, which means your drive checks and your damage checks are more likely to hit triggers. And just a FYI, I am playing crits, so that makes your drive checks even more deadly. Just in general, and even in the grade 3 turn, when you have that full Glory turn per se, and even on your stride turns, if you go into your strides. And the thing is that Analyze Shooter is always live. So your Vanguard column is actually always a potential threat of deck thinning. To be honest, if you resolve his skill once, you're pretty much in the promised land. And if you resolve a second time, that's even better at that point. And so you can really dictate the quality of your hand. You can actually just improve the quality of your drive checks and your damage checks altogether. And I mean, I thought about making 4 Analyze Shooters, but he's 6k. So you have to get creative with this boosting. I mean, 6k with the Legion turn. The Legion is actually 22k if you have Pavrov in the Soul. So 6k plus 22 makes 28, which is good against Force Vanguards. So that's still decent. And so I just wanted to see enough, and so 3 is fitting well. And Barragios is really just that the extra card that I would like to see to help promote this deck overall, and as a booster potentially to make that turn as well. So yeah, as you can see, a lot of great ones. That's really the major difference between me and Zae's build. That Pavrov Barragios difference. Another note to make, I tried cutting Matiatis to 1. I don't recommend it because I kept drawing into it. It got milled by other decks like Mega Colony, or it got into the damage zone, which that means you can't use Legion. So having the 2 Matiatis is still key. At least with Genovius, you can put it in the graveyard, or then drop since it's Vanguard, and you can return it with Legion skill. So yeah. Onto the grade zeros, we are playing as Kosti as the starter. Like I said, we're not playing Alex. Honestly, the draw 1 is better. And again, these starters got the errata, so if you do go second, you get the ticket, which is nice. Another key thing to note, if you really don't need the ticket and you need a combo piece, you can discard it with cards like Barragios, the Analyze Shooter, and so on. So that way you could actually keep your combo pieces and then just kind of use that ticket as fodder, basically. And so one of the things that, just like with Revon Ripples, I've gone the 3 heal, the 4 draw, and the rest of them crit. So we are playing 9 crit. Yeah, we are playing 9 crit. I just wanted to make sure. And really, you want the crit pressure. I tried the front triggers in the first iteration of this profile last year. I'm not a really big fan of fronts. And with the metagame going on, you really need the crits. And honestly, it just helps you push your damage into high damage as soon as possible. And then if you could do the glory turn, even if your opponent's at 4 damage, or ideally 5 damage, but if they're at 4 damage, you're still lethal, which makes an entire difference, because with the front triggers, they're able to dodge, or not dodge, but they're able to block some of the attacks and take one. So that way they can still survive that turn. And that's where I find myself, so the crits help. Zaee also agree with the crits, that the crits are really needed. With the premium collection stuff, you can easily replace the vanilla crits with the stride fighter crits, which helps with striding. So I definitely recommend that. And of course, drop PGs so we can have PGs still and make room in the grade 1s. And then of course, Aquaforce always appreciates jaw triggers. And then with the 3 heals, honestly, you're usually dishing more damage early on. So seeing a heal early on doesn't really help you. But we still need the 20k shield, G Guardian, and of course heal later on. And so 3 heal triggers has been helping. I wouldn't say helping, but has been working for me, partly because you're also legioning, and you can return heal triggers, you can return crits, draws, anything that you need. So you're more likely to see your heal triggers again. And so that's one of the things, even in Legion era, people have started or have noticed before, is that you see more triggers because you're reshuffling them back from drop to graveyard, and they just go off more in your drive checks and stuff like that. So yeah. So in this part of the video, I'm actually just going to show off how that Glory Legion turn can look like. Honestly, there's a lot of formations that you can do. This is one that I just kind of came up with the spot, or came up on the spot per se. And so let's say you have 2 Counterblasts open and you rode into your first grade 3 turn. So you have your Excel marker over here. Your field is starting to look like this, basically. So in this case, I'm going to use a combination of Elder Moss and, of course, Odysseus. So assuming that you basically resolve an Analyze Shooter in the early game and discard a Maelstrom, you can use basically Elder Moss. Let's say this is in the drop. You can use Counterblast and shove it into Soul. It gets +4. So now you have the full Glory 3. The full Glory skill live once you use it. And so right before you Legion, you want to do it. So you're going to Counterblast 1 again. Now all your front units get +10k power. So that's very key. And then basically with whatever unit that you may have, let's say, let's just say I have a Pavrov here. So I'm going to call Pavrov. You can shove it into Soul. And then basically search for Latiatus and then perform Legion. So that way you can have like this. There you go. And then when you call out the grade 3, so let's say you call out the Glory. I'm trying to do this all at once. It's working out phenomenal. There we go. You can call it a rear guard, because one of the things that I noticed is that because it gives other front row units the actual +10k, you don't want to actually just call over them, because then that column is weaker. So then that way you can just call the booster over this kind of useless card, and you can maximize your field potential. So your field can look like this after applying the Glory Turn skill and the Legion as well. And so we can just do any attack pattern. So one of the things that are very small is this Elder Moss by himself over here. So 10k +5 he is 15k, but Glory +10, 25k. So that's very big. And so if they have a 15k, they could actually stop it. Also, you can attack with this column next. Since he did the skill, he can be +4. So he'll be 14, and then +10k, 24, 24 +7. Now you're hitting 31k. Now that makes actually a decent number. If you were to use the skill in reverse, he would have been basically 27k, which is good against Excel Protect clans. And you might have wanted the 4k in here, so that way he becomes a 14k plus the Excel 2 circle, making him 29. Yeah, 29 with the Glory skill, which those numbers actually pair up better. So just be mindful of what clan you're facing, so the numbers may actually matter at that point. And then because you have 1, 2, 3 other units, you can really actually just either boost with the Baragios and Coral Assault. So let's say in this example I do. And basically, Coral Assault's going to see that, so he's going to be +15k. Baragios is going to be the 13k booster. So it's a 24k plus the Glory skill, 34k, plus 13k makes 47. So that's a really big number. And then now you can do the Legion, which on attack, you can restand one of your rearguards and countercharge. And then, of course, you would draw a card because you have a full rested back row. So it's really cool because you can re-abuse cards like Coral Assault. And again, Coral Assault is he's a 34k beater by himself. So if you have any triggers, you could put him on the Coral Assault, really making a threat known. And then if you hit, you can also have the Analyze Resolve too, just you know. But other than that, this is really the turn, and then you just poke again. And so really that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 attacks. So yeah. Onto the strides. So for the Maelstrom support, we are playing Disaster Maelstrom and Engulf Maelstrom. So what Disaster Maelstrom does is that basically on attack, flip a copy of himself. That's all the cost that it has. It doesn't cause Counter Blast or Soul Blast or anything. So that's actually pretty nice in case you don't have any damage. And then what he does is basically on attack, if you have a heart card with Maelstrom, you can search up to 1 card with Maelstrom in the name and add it to your hand and shuffle your deck. So deck things for you, and it helps promote if you have to rewrite next turn with Glory to really go for the Glory turn next turn at that point. If you already have a card with Maelstrom in the name in the soul, then choose up to 3 of your units in the front row, and they get plus 5k. So with the XL2 circle, you can actually have 3 front row regards, and you can give the plus 5k. Before, you would basically give the Vanguard an additional 5k, and then that's okay if you need to do it that way too. It really just depends on your field formation that turn. And then Engulf is really nice because he has a 4th battle skill. 4th battle, when this attacks, your opponent cannot call cards from his or her hand to Guardian Circle with grade less than the number of Maelstroms in your soul. So if you have 1 Maelstrom already, they cannot call grade 0s to Guardian Circle, which means if they're playing the draw PGs, they cannot PG. So just keep in mind that is really nifty. You can do this on first drive. It really makes sense. The second skill is just kind of nice. You can flip any card face up in the G zone, and then if the cards face up in the G zone or Maelstrom is 2 or more, you can actually get plus 5 in a crit, which may actually matter. If you're going against maybe Link Joker, you can have a threatening Vanguard without calling regards, or maybe your formation isn't that great, and this might be the better choice. It really just depends. I just have him here just to kind of have that utility. But ultimately, I usually go into Disaster Maelstrom, and then any of the other strats I may apply. And so, like, the staples are really the 2 Alexandros, the Lambros, and the Valeos. Alexandros, second wave or third wave, Counter Blast 1. At the end of the battle, restand 2 of your regards, and they get plus 5k for each of the face-up cards in the G-Zone. Lambros is 4th battle or more. Basically, flip itself, stand 2 of your units, and then if you have basically 2 or more face-up in the G-Zone, they get 10k. And then Valeos, of course, when it attacks Counter Blast 1, flip it and then in the G-Zone, then call to the number 2 times per face-up card in the G-Zone, and then for every card that you call, draw. And if you have 2 face-up cards in the G-Zone, your opponent gets 11k locked. So that's really nice. So these 2, basically, I feel like Alexandros, Lambros, and Valeos are a good set of 6 cards in total to just splash in any Aqua Force stack, so they're definitely have their uses, and so that's nice. And then Megiddo and Wailing Thalas. Megiddo is the ultimate stride, which can come up. Just being able to ultimate stride and actually end games is really nice. You have access to Coral Assault, so you could bring a bunch of Coral Assaults or a couple of them, because he has to see rest of units to make sure you actually get powered up. So you just build your formations according to that, if that makes more sense. Wailing Thalas, to be honest, you can play the Premium Collection stride that just came out, the 2021 or 2020, yeah. And basically, Wailing Thalas is kind of like that slot that you just stick in. So you can swap that out. That strat is actually pretty good. You can build a field. You can really take advantage, retire stuff, restand Coral Soul, really take advantage of that too. Wailing Thalas is there being able to basically retire. I noticed that this deck is just like the old school Maelstrom, that you can actually have your regards attack first, and then the Maelstrom still attack at the last battle. So Wailing Thalas kind of goes with that pattern. So you can retire a lot of cards, and if you decide to use the Counter Blast, you can basically get power and restrict for no grade 1s to Guardian Circle, which could matter, just depends. But honestly, I definitely recommend the Premium Collection 2020 stride that we got for Aqua Force. So yeah. Lastly, we have the G-Guards. Ice Barrier, he's good on the 1st and the 4th battle. Gaphilias is great, especially right now with Odysseus, Eldemas, Coral Assault. They just build up Soul. So if you have her face up in the G-Zone, you can Soul Blast, Countercharge, or unlock stuff. It's really nice. There's no Soul problems at that point. 5k shield in the 2nd, 3rd wave battle. And then, of course, Ionis is really good because he's your G-Flip. But more importantly is because you more than likely have a field, so you get the +5 for every unit. So this can be your biggest shield on an average basis, unless you got Retire or Binding or whatever. But Ionis is still really good for that. So yeah. And that's the deck profile, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, a lot of this goes to Zaee. He actually has kept this deck up to date, which I appreciate, my amigo. Shout out to you. And honestly, this is a fun Maelstrom deck. So for those who just have that Maelstrom nostalgia, definitely recommend playing it out. You could always change it up to become more Maelstrom if you want to. This is just more like utilizing the Ripple engine. And then, of course, there's Zazan stuff, but this deck does not play the Zazan stuff. I'll say that right now. But if you want to, you can. If you want something that has a Glory Ripple Zazan, there's a CFA playtesting video StandUpTheSoryu actually published Zae's deck profile on that version too, so go on his channel and check it out. And that's it. So next time, comment down below, share, subscribe. See ya. Bye.